My beloved brothers and sisters, let me remind you today of a truth that many of us overlook. Sin is not always about the words you speak or the actions you take with your hands. Sometimes the greatest danger is hidden in the very places your feet choose to carry you. Where you sit, where you walk, where you spend your time. These environments are constantly shaping your heart and mind. If you value your faith and want it to remain strong, there are certain places you must never enter. Every step you take has weight. Every direction you walk either draws you closer to God or pushes you further away from Him. Do not be deceived into thinking that simply being there is harmless, because your environment influences your soul in ways you may not even realize. So pay attention, because today I want to share with you 7 powerful lessons about the kinds of places you must never enter if you truly value your faith. 1. Never step into places of open sin. When you knowingly step into a place where the commands of God are being ignored, you are not just visiting a location, you are walking into danger for your faith. Think about it carefully. You enter a gathering where alcohol is being poured as if it were water, where people laugh loudly without any sense of modesty, where shameful acts are seen as entertainment, and where those who disobey God are treated like role models. At first, you may say to yourself, I will not drink, I will not dance, I will not take part. But what you may not realize is that by simply being present, your heart is quietly learning to accept and normalize what should never be accepted. The human heart is like soft clay. It is shaped by the environment it is placed in. If you keep your heart in clean and pure surroundings, it will grow firm upon goodness. But if you place it in an environment of corruption and sin, even if you don't act, the clay begins to crack and weaken. Over time, you will find that you no longer feel disturbed when God's laws are broken in front of you. You no longer feel the need to turn away. That is how faith dies. Not always through a loud rebellion, but often through a slow process of desensitization. Ask yourself, how many people today can sit in a room filled with indecency and feel nothing? That nothing is the most dangerous thing. Because when your heart loses the ability to dislike sin, it has already taken a step towards embracing it. This is why the Prophet warned us that faith requires, at the very least, that you dislike wrongdoing in your heart, even if you cannot change it with your words or actions. But if you place yourself willingly in environments where sin is celebrated, then even that minimum level of faith begins to disappear. Protect yourself from such surroundings. Do not say, I am strong, it will not affect me. Even the strongest person is influenced by their environment. If you take a clean white garment and place it in a room filled with smoke, it will eventually smell of smoke, whether you wanted it or not. In the same way, if you place your heart in an atmosphere of disobedience, it will absorb the filth of that environment. Faith is like a delicate plant. It cannot grow in polluted soil. It needs clean surroundings, fresh water, and pure air. So my brothers and sisters, protect your heart by protecting your footsteps. Do not allow your presence to become a silent approval of sin. If you value your Iman, distance yourself from places where disobedience becomes normal and where God is forgotten. Because once your heart adapts to sin, pulling it back to purity becomes far more difficult. 2. Never step into gatherings of gossip and backbiting. One of the easiest traps a believer can fall into is sitting in a gathering where people talk about others behind their backs. At first, it may seem harmless. A friend says, "Did you hear what happened to so-and-so?" And before you know it, the whole group is laughing, mocking, and tearing apart the honor of someone who isn't even there to defend themselves. In such moments, many of us think, I did not say anything, so I am safe. But in reality, even your silence can be counted as agreement. By remaining in that circle, you have chosen to be a participant in a sin that is serious enough to destroy your good deeds. God describes gossip and backbiting in the Quran with a shocking image. He asks, would any of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? You would hate it. Think about that for a moment. Imagine a lifeless body of your own brother before you, and someone invites you to take a bite. You would shiver in disgust and say, never. Yet God says this is exactly what happens when you backbite or when you sit and enjoy others doing it. It is not just a bad habit, it is a spiritual crime that turns you into a person who feeds on the dignity of others. The danger of these gatherings is not only in the words spoken, but in the effect they have on your heart. When you sit with people who constantly gossip, you begin to see it as normal. Your ears grow used to hearing the worst about others, your tongue becomes restless until it joins in, and your heart starts to find pleasure in hearing people's faults, and soon you realize that instead of fixing your own flaws, you are wasting your time discussing the flaws of others. Gossip is a thief. It steals your time, your energy, your sincerity, and even your faith. Think about the friendships you keep. The Prophet taught us that a person is upon the way of their close friends, so be careful who you choose to sit with. If you spend time with those who love to spread gossip, you will soon become like them. And even if you resist, the filth of their words will stain your heart. On the other hand, if you sit with people who remind you of God, who speak good words, who encourage you to learn and improve, then their company will elevate you. So ask yourself, my beloved brothers and sisters, what kind of gatherings do you sit in? Do you leave a group feeling inspired and closer to God, or do you leave with a head full of other people's faults? If it is the second, then you are in danger. Walk away from such circles. It may feel awkward at first, but it will save your faith. Protect your heart, protect your tongue, and protect your good deeds by avoiding gatherings where gossip and backbiting are the main entertainment. Because on the day of judgment, you will find that the people you mocked have taken your good deeds as compensation, leaving you empty-handed. 3. Never step into places that glorify evil. There are places that are carefully designed to pull your heart away from God. These are environments where everything revolves around desire, entertainment, and forgetting your purpose in life. Think about nightclubs, parties, and concerts where modesty is thrown out the window, where music is so loud that it drowns out any thought of prayer or remembrance, and where people feel free to indulge in whatever temptation comes their way. These places are not neutral. They are engineered to feed the ego and silence the conscience. When you step into them, you're entering an atmosphere where evil is not just present, it is celebrated. Some people try to excuse themselves by saying, I will not participate, I am just going for fun, just for the atmosphere, just to be with friends. But what many forget is that Shaitan does not need you to commit the biggest sin on the first day. He only needs a small opening. One night of exposure to such an environment can plant seeds of desire in your heart that slowly grow over time. You may not drink that night, but you start craving the atmosphere. You may not commit indecency that night, but you remember the feeling and want to return. This is exactly how the enemy works. He takes you step by step, small compromise after small compromise, until you are trapped in something you never imagined yourself doing. God warns us clearly in the Quran, do not follow the footsteps of the devil. Notice the word footsteps. The path to destruction is rarely sudden. It is almost always gradual. First you listen to the music, then you attend the party, then you feel comfortable around sin, and eventually you become part of it. A person does not fall into a pit by jumping. It usually happens by walking closer and closer until they lose their balance. Now think about the effect these environments have on your faith. In a place where the name of God is never mentioned, where people lose themselves in intoxication, where modesty is mocked, how can your heart remain soft and connected to your Creator? Even if you enter with the intention of staying pure, the constant bombardment of sights, sounds, and temptations leaves scars on the soul. Just like standing in heavy smoke leaves your clothes smelling of it, being in an environment filled with sin leaves your heart stained, whether you realize it or not. Ask yourself honestly, what do you gain from such places? Do you leave them feeling closer to God, or do you leave with a heavier heart, distracted mind, and weakened willpower? The answer is clear. Faith cannot survive in an atmosphere designed to kill it. Your heart is like a lamp. If you place it in a storm, the flame will eventually be blown out. Protect that flame by never stepping into places that glorify evil, even for a moment. My beloved brothers and sisters, remember this truth. Fun that pulls you away from God is not fun at all. It is a slow poison. True joy is not found in flashing lights or loud music, but in the peace that comes from a heart connected to its Creator. Do not sell your faith for a temporary moment of entertainment. Value your soul enough to say no to the doors of evil, and instead choose the places where your heart is remembered by the angels and loved by God. 4. Never step into friendships that drag you to sin. Sometimes the most dangerous place you can step into is not a nightclub, not a gathering, not even a sinful environment. It is the circle of friends you surround yourself with. People often think of places as buildings or locations, but in reality, your friends create an atmosphere around you every time you sit with them. The people you spend time with shape your thinking, your habits, and your values more than you realize. If you want to know the direction of your life, look closely at the direction of your friendships. If your companions constantly invite you towards wrongdoing, if they laugh at your principles, if they mock faith and belittle those who try to live a life of purity, then every time you sit with them, you are stepping into spiritual danger. A poisonous friendship is like a slow drip of poison in your drink. It does not kill you instantly, but over time it weakens you until you cannot stand. You may think, I am strong, I can resist their influence. But remember, no matter how strong a tree is, if it is surrounded by fire, eventually the flames will reach it. The Quran tells us about the regret of people on the day of judgment who will cry out, "Woe to me! I wish I had never taken that person as a friend. He led me away from the reminder after it had come to me." Imagine the pain of realizing too late that the people you trusted, laughed with, and shared your life with were the very ones who pulled you away from God. On that day, excuses will not help. You cannot say, "I was just trying to fit in." You cannot say, "I did not want to be left out." Every friendship was your choice, and every choice will be accounted for. Think about how easily we are influenced by those around us. If you spend enough time with people who swear, you will begin to pick up their language. If you spend enough time with people who waste hours in entertainment, you will begin to waste your hours as well. And if you spend enough time with people who sin openly, eventually you will not only feel comfortable with it, you may join them. Human beings are social creatures, and we become like the company we keep. The Prophet gave us a powerful example. A good friend is like a seller of perfume. Even if you do not buy anything, you will still enjoy the fragrance. A bad friend is like a blacksmith. Even if you do not touch the fire, you will still smell of smoke. Now ask yourself honestly, who are your closest friends? Do they remind you of prayer when you forget? Do they stop you when you are about to do wrong? Do they encourage you to learn, to grow, to purify your character? Or do they push you into situations where your faith is weakened, where sin feels normal, and where disobedience becomes a form of entertainment? The answer to that question will tell you everything about the health of your Iman. Do not underestimate the power of friendship. Many people were destroyed not because they were evil themselves, but because they allowed themselves to be led by the wrong people. And many others were saved not because they were perfect, but because they surrounded themselves with good friends who reminded them of God when they were weak. So my beloved brothers and sisters, never step into friendships that drag you into sin. Be brave enough to walk away from people who harm your faith, even if it means being alone for a while. Loneliness with God is better than companionship with those who lead you to destruction. And remember this, your friends in this world will either be your witnesses for you on the day of judgment or your witnesses against you. Choose them wisely, because every time you step into their company, you are shaping your eternal future. 6. Never step into the doors of pride and arrogance. Among the most dangerous places a believer can step into are not physical locations filled with music or sin, but the hidden doors of pride and arrogance that open in the heart. Sometimes people walk into gatherings not because they want to learn or to benefit, but simply to be seen. They want others to notice their clothing, their wealth, their position, their beauty, or their status. And once pride takes root, even the purest of places can become poisoned. You could walk into a mosque, a wedding, or a classroom with the right intention and be rewarded by God. But you could also walk into those very same places with arrogance in your heart and be destroyed by it. Arrogance is not about what you wear, what you own, or how you look. It is about how you see yourself compared to others. When you enter a place and think, I am better than these people, or when you look down on someone because of their clothing, their race, their background, or their wealth, you have already stepped into a dangerous zone. Remember, arrogance was the very reason why the devil was cursed. When God commanded him to bow to Adam, he refused and said, I am better than him. That single moment of arrogance caused him to lose his place in paradise forever. One thought of superiority destroyed him, and the same disease can destroy us if we allow it to grow in our hearts. The scary thing about arrogance is how subtle it can be. It does not always appear as loud boasting. Sometimes it appears as a quiet feeling of being above others. You may not say it, but you feel it. You may not show it, but you think it. And if this disease grows unchecked, it blinds you from recognizing truth, because pride does not allow a person to admit mistakes or accept guidance. Many people miss opportunities to come closer to God, not because they lack knowledge, but because they are too proud to admit they were wrong. Pride blocks the path of repentance, and without repentance, the door to forgiveness remains closed. Think about how pride changes the way we behave in everyday life. A proud person refuses to greet others first because they believe it lowers their status. A proud person refuses to ask for help even when they are in need because they believe it makes them look weak. A proud person refuses to forgive because they think forgiveness makes them look small. And in doing so, they step into the exact trap that destroys hearts. The Prophet warned that anyone who has even the smallest amount of arrogance in their heart will not enter paradise. Even an atom's weight of pride is enough to keep you out. Now ask yourself, why do we enter certain places? Do we enter them to please God or to be noticed by people?